Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. We've been exploring the world of the Queen Mother through the book The Queen Mother. The last video ended with the war being over and Elizabeth growing up too fast with all the turmoil. So let's see where life takes her next. Well, life began to turn back to normal. In September 1919, Glamis was once again filled with young people laughing and singing around the fireplaces. Christmas at St. Paul's Walden, she went out shooting with her brothers Mike and David and played with her brother Jock's children, and it all helped to make her feel better. In March, Elizabeth went to Buckingham Palace for the first time with a group of Scottish ladies led by her elder sister May. They had embroidered new covers for a set of chairs in the palace at Holyrood House and presented Queen Mary with their handiwork. The Queen was delighted by what she received. July 1920, Elizabeth was formally presented at court. She dined with the King and Queen, and she had her first meeting with Prince Albert. July the 8th, Elizabeth went to the Royal Air Force Ball at the Ritz, and she wrote to her friend Burrell that it was really amusing and there was some priceless people there, all heroes of the air, too. Prince Albert was at the ball. With him was his new equerry, James Stuart, youngest son of the Earl of Moray. Stuart wrote years later Prince Albert had asked him that evening, "Who was that girl with whom I had just been dancing?" And he said her name was Lady Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. And the prince asked to be introduced to her, and Stuart did that. The prince invited her to the dance floor, and Elizabeth wrote to her friend Burrell, "I danced with Prince Albert, whom I hadn't known before. He is quite a nice youth." I guess she forgot that they had met previously at a tea party, and Prince Albert didn't seem to be remembering it either. So this meeting didn't make much of an impression on her. So Prince Albert wanted to win her favor and her hand. It wasn't going to be easy because she was admired by a lot of people and in much demand, and she enjoyed the carefree, open, happy lifestyle that her parents had brought her up in. It was the opposite for Prince Albert, who was brought up in a court routine. Prince Albert, according to the book, was a sensitive young man. He was born December 14th, the anniversary of his great-grandfather's death. His name was Prince Albert also, so Queen Victoria thought this was a sacred day. Albert's parents were afraid she would be upset that they had named him Albert, but Queen Victoria wasn't upset. She was honored. Albert's childhood wasn't easy. His elder brother David had enormous easy charm, and Albert adored him. Albert was born with knock knees and was left-handed. In those days, it was felt that they needed to be corrected. He wore splints on his legs, which caused him great pain both day and night. Albert's parents were devoted to their children, but they couldn't seem to get close to them. Prince Albert learned from them at an early age that he always had to be obedient. He had a nanny who didn't take care of him very well because she loved David better, so he had digestive problems for the rest of his life. Albert also had a stammer and a temper he found hard to control. Albert, like his brother and father, went into the Navy. People liked him. He was well-mannered, kind, generous. He had determination and character. He rose from the bottom of his class and progressed to join the Royal Navy. When his father took to the throne as King George V, he had reigned for 26 years, and while other emperors and 8 kings would disappear and many dynasties with him, the British monarchy emerged stronger than ever. It was during this time Prince Edward, also known as David, became heir apparent and was made Prince of Wales in 1911. Prince Albert was 18 months younger. He felt unequal to his brother and overshadowed. Prince Albert, though, was better at sports, and that drew him closer to his father. He was one of the best shots in the land, so Prince Albert had determination, and he was conscientious too. Prince Albert loved his naval career, but he had ill health, so it prevented him from giving full wartime service. He had an appendectomy in September 1914, and over the next 3 years he had severe gastric problems that forced him to take long periods in the sick bays or convalescing at home. He said, "I'm longing, and have been longing for centuries to get back to my ship." May 1916, he finally got back to it. By July 1916, he had a duodenal ulcer, and he had to recover for months from it. And he joined the battleship Malaya, and the ship's doctor supported the prince's desire to relieve his gastric problems. The royal doctors didn't want to do anything about it. The operation in November was successful. He then transferred to the Royal Naval Air Service, and that would turn into the Royal Air Force. He went to flight training school, and he was the first member of the royal family to take to the air. And after the war, he continued his training and passed the flying test, although he was not allowed to fly solo. After the war, both the Prince of Wales and Prince Albert loved to be social. The king was worried about his sons in the New World. The king and queen preferred dignified seclusion, eating alone with each other. When the war ended, Elizabeth had more suitors. She got some proposals from the Commonwealth soldiers who had stayed at Glamis. She found it hard to write them rejecting their proposals and asked her friend Beryl for help. In later years, Elizabeth said people were rather inclined to be proposed to in those days. It was rather the sort of thing. I suppose you said no thank you, and the rejected suitor would reply, "Oh, I thought you wouldn't," so she felt it was all very nice and light-hearted. One who constantly sought her out was Prince Paul of Serbia. He was a popular member of the London Society and a close friend of Elizabeth's brother Michael. He praised her shining, lively eyes and beautiful smile. Then there was Bruce Ogilvy. He was an amusing companion, but she dismissed him along with Captain Glass, whom she said was among the silly nice fools. The suitor who came close to winning her hand was James Stewart. He fought with great courage during the war and was awarded the Military Cross and Bar. On July 17th, the prince went to Bisham on the Thames near Henley to spend the weekend at a house party given by Lady Nina Balfour. It was there that he met Elizabeth again. He held her hand where Nina, the hostess of the party, could see, and on August 20th, Elizabeth and her family returned to Glamis, and the guests kept coming. As Elizabeth and her brothers, Michael and David, were the only unmarried family members, they held the annual Forfar County Ball on the 8th, and she danced with many admirers, Prince Paul, Lord Gage, James Stewart, and Victor Cochrane Bailey. The ball was fun, and the house part was even better. They could play tennis, cricket, shooting, and walking, and in the evenings dress up and dance, play charades, cards, and sing around the piano. Elizabeth was in the center of it all. Lord Goral said to a biographer, "I was madly in love with her. Everything at Glamis was beautiful, perfect. Being there was like being in a Van Dyck picture. Time and gossiping, junketing world stood still, but the magic gripped us all. I fell madly in love. They all did." By the end of the week, Elizabeth had enough. She was tired. She said, "We dressed up and ragged about, and now that the hard court is finished, we played all day." She said Victor proposed to me the night we all dressed up. She said he looked too awful with great black smudges all over his face. I did hate it. Don't tell anybody. She said there was a few people here and must fly and dress for dinner. As a P.S., she noted that Prince Albert is coming to stay here on Saturday. Ghastly. The prince had invited himself from Balmoral. He and Princess Mary were staying with their parents in the gloomy isolation. There were some elderly guests and royal cousins for company, and Princess Mary had been invited by Mabel, the Countess of Airlie, to stay with her at Airlie Castle, and that was only a few miles away from Glamis. Elizabeth was nervous and asked many of her friends and members of the family for assistance. One afternoon, Princess Mary came over from Airlie again. Elizabeth wrote to Beryl afterwards, "I showed her and the Duke the castle and terrified them with ghost stories. We played ridiculous games of hide and seek. They really are babies. She didn't leave until 6:30, and we played general post and flags, etc., till dinner time. And I had played tennis all morning, so you can imagine how tired I was." She said poor Mary really did enjoy herself. She's most awfully nice. After dinner, they sang noisily all evening, and it was quite fun. The prince was enchanted by it all. His family was so formal, and Elizabeth's family had a relaxed joy. That weekend convinced Prince Albert that Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon was the woman for him. Elizabeth was aware of the prince's feelings for her. The prince had begun to court her, and it worried her. Then came the time that the prince went to St. Paul's Walden for the first time. Elizabeth invited him to lunch January 17th. She gave him directions, telling him to keep to the right all the way till you come to a tumble-down, old white gate on the left. Then you go up a bumpy road full of holes, and eventually reach an even more tumble-down old house, and a tumble-down little person waiting on the doorstep, which will be me. I am, sir, yours sincerely, Elizabeth Lyon. Each time the prince saw Elizabeth, he fell more in love. Early in 1921, he told his parents that he was planning to propose to her. The prince asked himself to lunch on February the 27th. Elizabeth seemed to be trying to keep him away by saying there was no servants, so if you come to luncheon, there would be nobody to wait on us. She said if he had something amusing to do, please don't worry to come. Otherwise, if you don't mind having no servants and things, do come. When he got there that afternoon, he proposed, and she refused him. It was upsetting, and she wrote to him the next day. Dear Prince Bertie, I must write one line to say how dreadfully sorry I am about yesterday. It makes me miserable to think of it. You have been so very nice about it. Please do forgive me. Also, please don't worry about it. I do understand so well what you feel and sympathize so much, and I hate to think that I am the cause of it. I honestly can't explain to you how terribly sorry I am. It worries me so much to think that you may be unhappy, and I do hope you won't be. Anyway, we can be good friends, can't we? Please do look at me as one. I shall never say anything about our talks, I promise you, and nobody need ever know. I thought I must write this short letter to try and tell you how sorry I am. Yours very sincerely, Elizabeth. So I'm going to stop the video here. It was nice to see how things got back to normal for everyone and how happy Elizabeth and her family were. They got back to normal, and Elizabeth seemed to be the belle of the ball and had many admirers. Prince Albert became more enchanted with her, and Elizabeth seemed a little bit afraid of that. I can't wait to see when she finally changes her mind and decides that she will marry the future king. I hope everyone has been having a good day, and if you liked the video, if you could give it a thumbs up, it would be greatly appreciated. Tune in again soon for another episode of Queen Elizabeth, A Day in Her Life. Thank you. Bye.